12s, my name is Carden Madzokere and welcome to Exam Prep Public Sector. Right, as usual, we're going to go through some past papers and in this lesson we're focusing on public sector. All right, so public sector is the topic number 3 because we have circular flow business cycles. Then this one is the third topic in our syllabus. And so we do this topic in term 1 under macroeconomics. So let's have a look at what's been coming over the years in as far as public sector is concerned. Right, so as you can see, this one here in the exam would say, study the cartoon below and answer the questions that follow. It's one of the latest cartoons that we've had in our past papers, because this paper is 2019 paper last year. It says here, it looks like I have to revise the medium-term expenditure framework, and you know this is done in every October, and this one here is a 3-year rolling budget. Okay, you'll see some questions with regards to this, and the person who's saying that is Tito Mboweni. And why? He's the Minister of Finance, and he's the one who is responsible for this policy. And then we see here Eskom, it's a public company. Oh, sorry, I'm saying a public. It's a state-owned company, so it belongs to the government of South Africa, and it says Eskom 2019 budget. Okay, so he's holding the budget here, and it looks like these state-owned companies are a big problem. Look at the size of the Eskom budget, and this is the budget for the entire country. So he's walking to Parliament to present the medium-term expenditure framework. All right, so let's see what questions come. Name any one state-owned company in the country. All right, we have South African Airways. You know, a lot of problems with this. Eskom, Transnet, Post Office, South African Express, and Denel. All right, you can have, I think there are about 15 if I'm not mistaken. What is the current VAT rate in South Africa? It is 15%. It was increased from 14%. So if you are using a textbook, an old one, and I remember the Minister of Finance then was Malusi Gigaba. He's the one who adjusted it from 14% to 15%. So if you have an old textbook, it might say 14%. Just take note, currently it's 15%. And if you're watching it, this video in the future, it might have changed as well. So you just need to be relevant. Right, briefly describe the term medium-term expenditure framework. I've done it already. Oh, the medium-term budget policy statement. The medium-term budget policy statement adjusts to changes in the economy since the main budget. So as we all know, the main budget is presented in February, and so these adjustments can be made in October when this budget here is being presented. So it is based on the medium-term expenditure framework and shares the developments in public policy that will shape the next and forthcoming budgets. So it's a 3-year rolling budget, thing like that. Explain the relationship between the main budget and the medium-term expenditure framework. The main budget is guided by the medium-term expenditure framework. Like you see here, he's talking about adjusting it, and that means that will affect the next budget, as in the budget for the following year. All right, so since this was 2019, it meant it would affect the budget for 2020, and right now we're in September, so next month the medium-term expenditure framework will be presented by Tito Mboweni. Right, so the main budget, like I said, is guided by the medium-term expenditure framework, which estimates income and expenditure for a 3-year period. And the budget that is presented in February is a budget for 1 year, one fiscal year, which runs from the 1st of April to the 31st of March every year. All right, so that's why we call it a 2020-21 budget or 2019-20 budget, because it runs from the 1st of April. The budget is presented in February, and that budget will be used from the 1st of April until the 21st, the 31st of March the following year. All right, so from the time the minister presents it, you see it's presented in February. Then we have March. So the whole of March, if there are any changes that have to be made, yes, it gives us that time to, make changes. Like, for instance, if I say, look, the VAT rate was adjusted, and so you can't then wake up in the morning and you start buying goods and already things are 15%. So it gives you more than a month to make adjustments to shops. Like, they have to, they're using software, so they need time to adjust their softwares to make it calculate the new VAT rate. I think you can see it will need that time. Right, what can the government do to solve the current financial challenges of state-owned enterprises? And it looks like many of them have problems. Right, the current financial challenges can be solved by, let's have a look, ensuring that fiscal and monetary management is improved. So this will be an improvement on Tito Mbowene's side and an improvement on let's say Jahanyaho's side. That is the Monetary Policy Committee and the Ministry of Finance. Both must make sure they improve their management of these two policies. The next point I have here is ensuring that proper human capital is correctly sourced or obtained. That means the people that are going to be working, have to be correctly sourced and obtained. That means hiring them and also training them. Strengthening the internal or external audit control systems, changing management to ensure accountability. And we all know that accountability is one of the major problems that government has. All right, let's move on to the next one. It will be study the table below and answer the questions that follow. Let's make a study here. I see budget speech 2018, changes in indirect tax. So expect questions along those lines, indirect or direct tax. Now, we have indirect taxes, carbon tax, estate duty, tax on luxury goods. And then we have the other one, which is increase in tax rates. Then it shows how these increased. The price of plastic bags increased by 50% to 12 cents per bag. And that's a carbon tax. Increased by 25% for estates greater than 30 million. Okay, well, so that's the study. Let's look at the questions. Which ministry or department is responsible for presenting or the presentation of the national budget speech to the parliament? That will be the National Treasury or the Department of Finance or the Ministry of Finance. You can put it that way. Right, name one form of direct tax payable to state. That will be personal income tax. That's a good one. Capital tax, property tax, company tax. Now, why do we call this direct tax? I think if you compare, let's say, company tax or personal income tax with VAT, the difference is when you pay your personal income tax, you are paying directly, like you are making the payment for, a tax on employment. But when we look at VAT, you don't go out to the shop to say, I'm going to pay tax. You are actually going there to buy something. You're going there to buy milk. And as you buy the milk, indirectly you are paying tax. So you see, that's the difference between the two. Right, briefly describe the term budget. Now, when you define the term budget, there are two main things that we expect to see. All right, the first one is revenue. So for you to draw up a budget for, let's say, even a simple one for a family, uh, the first thing you need to know is how much is the family earning for you to say, okay, we'll put this for food, this for that, this for accommodation, and so on. Because if you don't have the revenue, it won't be possible for you to tell how much should be spent on what. So for instance, you could say, okay, 10,000 is for rent, and then 4,000 is for groceries. Now, what if that particular family earns 6,000? So you see, you can't really budget for them if you don't know the income. So already you are budgeting 10,000 for accommodation, yet the family brings in only 6,000. So you'll have to budget depending on the income. So we all know where government gets their money from. Okay, there are many sources of income, but the main one is tax revenue. So the finance minister works with SARS. So SARS is collecting tax on behalf of the national treasury, and then SARS then hands over the money to the national treasury, and then depending on the amount of money, the national treasury then allocates these funds to different ministries, like Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, Ministry of all those things. Each ministry will get funding, and that is determined by the income, the revenue that the government has. And for that case, you'll see that if the government doesn't have enough money, that's when state debt will come in. They'll have to borrow the rest, and they can borrow it from the general public through bonds. So the general public can purchase government bonds, and yes, they get paid with interest after some time. And government can borrow from the IMF, government can borrow from the World Bank. And you all know about this recent one. I can't remember the figure, but the South African government was given money by the IMF with regards to COVID-19. All right, so that's so I want to see this term here, revenue, and I also want to see this term here, expenditure. So if you define a budget and you don't have these two terms, then it won't be easy for us to say your definition is correct. So a budget is a document showing anticipated revenue, like you see here. The money will be spent from the 1st of April until but then this thing is presented in March. So the revenue is anticipated. It's not fully collected. So, there will be elements of estimation there as well. And estimated expenditure for a specific period. So in our case, it's for one full year, which is from 1 April to 31 March. And we call it a fiscal year. How will the increase in carbon tax on plastic bags benefit the economy? Right, due to the fact that you are paying 12 cents, they ask you, do you need a plastic bag or not? In most cases, you will see that just because you're paying for it, in some cases you would say, no, I don't want it, because you just look at your items, and you know that before this was introduced, plastic bags were for free. So now we have to pay for them. So it kind of reduces the need to have it. So people sometimes they go to the supermarkets with their bags already because they are avoiding to buy plastic bags. Yes, it really happens. You might think 12 cents is nothing, but yeah, let's say you're buying something for 100 Rand and you only have 100 Rand, and you are not going to accept the plastic bag because you can't afford it anyway. right? So it will reduce environmental pollution, because you know what we do, we then just throw it away. So charging to use it, to have it, will help reduce environmental pollution. The next reason is it will increase government revenue. So this carbon tax is going to the government, as simple as that. Right, briefly describe the extent to which the government addresses economic equity. The South African government, I would applaud the government for their systems that they have in place to try and bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots. So the budget addresses economic equity by, the first one is redistributing wealth through a progressive income tax system, making higher income earners pay more tax than low income earners. And that is a way of redistributing income and wealth. Providing most required free social services, e.g. education, primary health care, free tertiary education, provision of housing and utilities to the poorest parts of the community. The next one will be providing a platform for all gender and racial boundaries to be crossed. The budget failed to address economic equity by increasing VAT by 1%, affecting the poor in more serious way compared to other income groups. That is very true. Introducing the carbon tax reduced the individual's disposable income and company profits. Right. So that's how. But the reason we're having two sides is the question is you can go, you can mention the good, you can mention the bad. So it's either you say you agree with the fact that the government is addressing economic equity. I wouldn't go for this other part myself. I would go for these three. And so anyway, you need only 2 points in this case. But when it comes to economic equity in South Africa, of course, the gap is too big. But let's give credit to what the government is trying to do. Social grants and things like that. That is trying to bridge the gap. All right, the next one will be mini budget 2016. And when you hear the word mini budget, you should know it's the October one, because the other one we normally call it the main budget. Right, so let's have a look at what we'll see here. Tax hikes, okay, I'll underline this, won't hurt the poor, was the promise of the Minister of Finance, okay, during the medium-term budget policy statement. All right, so that will be, it was in October. Okay, in South Africa, 10% of the population is responsible for 37% of all personal income tax to the state. Now have a look. 10% is contributing 37%, and which one is this 10%? It's the haves, it's the rich, it's the one with high income. So that's more or less what we were discussing in the previous question. It's a way of redistributing income, and we call this a progressive income tax system. Right, additional taxes are also charged in the form of value-added tax. Okay, this one everyone pays for it, and fuel levies. Okay, while sugar tax, this one is a new one, and carbon tax are possibilities in the future. Okay, so this was 2016, and this has been introduced, the sugar tax. Right, economists reported that a VAT increase would have the least negative effect on income equality in South Africa, while an increase in personal income tax or corporate tax would be more harmful. Okay, this was adapted from the Finance Week, October 2016. Right, who presents the budget speech in Parliament? That will be the Minister of Finance. If you want, you can mention the name. So it will be the current Minister of Finance. So in this case, would say it's Tito Mboweni. right? Identify the type of budget in the extract. Okay, that'll be the mini budget or the medium term budget policy statement, or you can abbreviate it. Briefly describe the term budget, and like I said in the previous question, these two must be there, and I'm not going to repeat that. What is the main purpose of levying sugar tax? Just try to think about it. It is a way of increasing government revenue, but that's not the main. The main one will be to discourage people from the excessive use of sugar, which causes people being diabetic and some heart diseases that are associated with sugar. So government is trying to reduce the consumption of sugar sweetened beverages, and so people are being encouraged here to start drinking fruit juices because they are probably sugar free or less sugar. Explain why an increase in VAT will have a negative impact on the economy. Right, an increase in VAT will, number one, cause an increase in prices of a wide range of products, which will lead to an increase in inflation. So prices will increase. Disadvantage the middle class and poor, decrease in disposable income. And you know what disposable income is? They will purchase less. Lower demand influencing production in a negative way, and decrease economic growth because of all those things that are happening. Right, the next one will be study the graph below and answer the questions that follow. And whenever you see something like this, and in our topic anyway, public sector, this is most probably the only graph we have, and it's the Laffer curve. And this one here is showing the relationship of between tax revenue and the tax rate. Look, if government doesn't charge any tax, they get nothing, no revenue at all. And if government charges 100%, they still get nothing. Because imagine you get a job, they tell you your salary is 1 million. Will you take it? Yes, you would. And then they tell you, but government will take all of it. So will you still take the job? Maybe not. So if government taxes 100%, they won't get anything because no one will be willing to work. And if government doesn't tax it at all, they'll get nothing still because they are not taxing anyone. So and in this case, you'll see that 45% is a tax rate that government should charge in order for them to maximize their revenue. So if government's target is 200 billion rands, like you see in this scenario, they would have to charge 45% tax. And what if they charge 60%? It doesn't make sense. They would make less money and they are hurting people more. So it wouldn't make sense to get to 65%. But 45 could make sense if government wants to, maximize and and play somewhere around this side. It depends. Remember, tax can be restrictive, it can be expansionary. So it could be, these figures can be adjusted depending on what's going on with business cycles. Are we going through an expansion phase? Are we going through a recession or contraction phase? So yes, government normally increases tax during times of prosperity, and they normally decrease tax during times of hardship, like what we're currently facing in 2020. By the way, you might be watching this in future, so yeah, it depends on what's going on then. But for now, we're going through tough times, and you'd expect government to reduce tax. So basically, that's the Laffer curve. So identify the curve in the graph above. I've said it is the Laffer curve. At what tax rate will government revenue be maximized? I've mentioned that already. That will be 45%. How much revenue will the government receive if the tax rate was 100? I've mentioned this again. They'll get nothing. What effect will a decrease in the tax rate from 65% to 45% have on tax revenue. Okay, if tax rate was 65 and it's reduced to 45, look what would happen. Revenue would go up. The question is asking about tax revenue. So tax revenue would go up from 175 billion to 200 billion. It's as simple as that. Right. What consequences could a 1% VAT increase have on the different role players in the South African economy? Right, the increase of VAT by 1% could affect role players this way: increasing the revenue to the government if the same or more is spent by businesses or households. That is, yes, if nothing changes in terms of spending, then government will make more money. But it's not always guaranteed that they would make more money. In some cases, they would make less because, people might be buying less. Right, resulting in a fall in output because fewer consumers will be able to afford to buy the same goods and services as before. I've mentioned that, leading to a decline in the satisfaction of consumers, mainly poor consumers, in buying luxury goods. They become way too expensive. They were expensive before, but now what more if you have to pay an extra? Then they'll be less attractive, causing an increase in tax, especially the high income earners, where they are responsible for 85% of VAT income. Then 19 basic food items are excluded from VAT that benefit more lower income earners, leading to a decrease in sales that will reduce profits. Right, the next one here, we have a pie chart sort of, and it shows state revenue. So this thing here is showing where the money is coming from, and you can clearly see, okay, I see this thing is not proportional. Look here, it says 3% and it says 3%, but these two don't look alike. So for you not to be misled, just look at the percentages there. If any questions are asked, just look at the percentages. But we can clearly see that personal income tax is the highest, and the lowest are these two: excise duties and corporate income tax. Let's go to the questions. Okay, and this one is for 2016-17. I've mentioned already that we call it like this because a fiscal year runs from this year to the next, 1st of April to the 31st of March. Right. Excuse me. Identify one form of an indirect tax in the information above. All right, so I talked about indirect tax before. Like a good one would be, look here, you are not going to pay tax. You are going there to buy some fuel, but as you do, you are contributing to tax, so it's indirect. What type of tax will contribute most to state revenue during 2016-17 financial year? That would be personal income tax. That's 34%. It's more than anything you see there. Briefly describe the term budget. So you see, with the topic public sector, you don't want to prepare for the exam and not know the definition for this term budget, because for the third time we're defining the same term. It's a document showing anticipated revenue and estimated expenditure. Again, you see those two words are always there. Give one reason why the government increased taxation, that is excise duties, on demerit goods during the 2016-17 financial year. Actually, government does this almost every year. They always increase this excise duty, and it's done to discourage the consumption of demerit goods, to discourage consumers not to buy or consume the product. And the reason is because demerit goods are those goods that are deemed to be bad. A good example is cigarettes. Another one is alcohol. When people are drunk, they could affect the community in a negative way. So we say demerit goods have a negative externality. So because they have that negative externality, then government finds ways in which they can, restrict consumption, and so they do it by increasing excise duties, right? To discourage producers from producing these items. How will an increase in corporate income tax impact negatively on economic growth? So what you need to do here is just try to use your common sense. If government increases corporate income tax, how can that negatively affect economic growth? And we measure economic growth we just simply look at GDP, actually real GDP. So it could reduce the amount that companies can put back into the business as investment, which will limit expansion and reduce jobs. So if that happens, you'll see that the GDP will be affected negatively. Reduce the amount of money that companies can use to become more efficient, which will reduce growth. Right, then we have another table to study here. Let's have a look. Public sector budget framework in billion rands. Take note. So any amount you see here, BN in front. Okay, make sure you don't forget that. In some cases, it's M for million, but it's BN. Okay, then we have a percentage there. Let's see what's going on. Revised medium term estimates 13, 14, 15. Remember, we defined it as a 3-year rolling budget. So it's sort of focusing for the next 3 years what's going to happen. All right, so then this is the revised one. So we have here revenue percentage of GDP, 27% of GDP, and then expenditure 32% of GDP, and then surplus or deficit percentage of GDP 4%. All right, so if we look at the revenue minus the expenditure, then it's a negative here, negative. So this 4% here, it's 4% of the the percentage to GDP. It's negative 4%. It's negative 148 divided by this times 100. That will give you negative 4%. And let's have a look at what's going to happen here. What does the abbreviation medium term expenditure framework? Right, what is the international benchmark for budget deficit as a percentage of GDP? That will be 3%. Then calculate the budget deficit, okay, for A. Okay, so that will be this one. So it's the same way they did this. So calculate the budget deficit of as a percentage of the GDP. So if you calculate the difference between these two, it's impossible. It can't be negative 12. It will be negative 120. I think it's a mistake here. Okay, I'll need a calculator, but I'm just looking at these two. They are not different by 12, but 120 would make sense. All right, so you have to use negative 120. All right, then times 100. I think if you do that, what will you get? 3%. Okay, I think I was supposed to calculate this before just to see, but use negative 120. I'm sure you get 3.0 something percent. Right, in your opinion, what can the government do to reduce this budget deficit? By budget deficit, we mean government has less money than they need. Just like in this case, government needs they need 1.2 trillion. Remember, we add billion in front of this figure. So government needs 1.2 billion rands, but government only has 1.1 trillion rands. So for that, government has a deficit of 120 billion rands. So this 120 billion rands will have to be borrowed. And so it has to be, okay, that thing I was telling you, let me just write it for this. But I didn't calculate. Just try this one. If you say 120 divided by 3997 times 100, see what you get. But I think you'll get 3.0 something, somewhere there, I don't know. So just try to do it. You will see why it says 3% here. Right, the next point, government can reduce public sector expenditure, e.g. stricter financial procedures, control or appointments of competent employees or training of employees. Government can increase its revenue, e.g. increasing taxes, improve on efficiency, and then more productive labor force. And labor force is mostly productive when labor force is skilled. So these two, they blend into each other. Right, the next one, study the table below and answer the questions that follow. During 2015-16, again, you see it's for 2 years. The Minister of Finance announced a relief for lower income earners. This is progressive, and increase tax for high income earners. Yes, this is progressive. For example, people earning more than 37,000 a month are going to pay more, while people who earn less than that will actually get a slight cut in their taxes. Okay, so government does this to try and bridge the gap. Do you remember that other question where I said I really applaud the South African government for this because it tries to bridge the gap? Right, in contrast, 8.5 million people who are registered as taxpayers do not pay any tax at all. Welfare grants are paid to 17 million people. That's a lot. That is why we still have a long way to go to get more equality in this country. Right, tax rates for the tax year ending 29 February 2019. Taxable income of individuals. Okay, so if you earn from 0 to 181, you pay 18% tax of taxable income, by the way. Then if you earn between this and this, you pay first 32,000 plus 26% of any amount above this, above 100, and so it's, you can see what's going on. Then like that, 59 plus this plus like that. So you see here the highest income earner was they were paying 41%, but now I think it's 43%. See, so it even went up since then. I think it's 43%. That's a lot. Right, what tax scale is referred to in the heading of the extract? Okay, it is a progressive one. We've been saying this 1,000 times. What important element of redress is found in the extract? That will be redressing the inequality of income or poverty. Explain the negative impact of high tax rates. We've seen this over and over again. Taxpayers develop tax resistance, and this may result in tax avoidance or evasion of tax. This one here is legal. This is illegal. Because tax avoidance is like, let me try to think. All right, let's say you buy shares and you make the share price goes up. So let's say you invested 100,000 and now your portfolio has 150,000, and then you think, oh, I've made a profit, let me sell. Then you think, oh no, if I sell, I'll have to pay tax for capital gains. Let me not do that. So you have avoided tax. So it's legal to do so because when you make a profit when your share, you are not forced to sell and pay tax. So if you do so, you are trying to avoid paying tax. So it's legal, but tax evasion is illegal. So if tax rates are high, people will do tax avoidance because they are avoiding. So by them avoiding, government is being impacted negatively. The next one will be discourage people from entering the labor market, accepting promotions, or working longer hours. Look, if let's say you are paying 59,000 plus 31%, and then if you get promoted, you go beyond this, so now you have to pay 93,000. So you might decline a promotion for that reason. Calculate the tax payable by a person whose taxable income is 200,000. So let's try to locate 200,000. Okay, 200,000 falls into this category. No. It falls into this one. Sorry, it falls into this one. So we are using 32,000 plus. So what you will have to do is to find the difference between 200,000 and this figure here. Let me see. No. From 181 to 200,000. So it's actually 200,000 minus 181, 100. Okay, 0. So that will be 0. This is 9. This will be 9 again. This will be, oh my goodness, 1. Yes, 1. Right, so then you calculate what percent? 26 over 100 times this, and I don't know what you're gonna get. All right, so it will be, remember what I said, it will be, you pay 32,000. Okay, this figure is what I was trying to calculate here. So somehow I got it wrong because my numbers don't look, I think I confused somewhere. But this 18,100 is the difference between 181 and 200,000. Yes, so 200,000 minus 181, it gives you 18,100 times 26, that gives you 4,000. Then you add it to this figure here, then you get 37,000, like that. The next one will be study the cartoon below and answer the questions that follow. It says here, what a surprise. Oh, so it probably means people were not expecting that move. No increase in income tax or VAT. Oh, so the budget speech is being presented and everyone is happy, and then all of a sudden we have fuel levies and sin tax gone up, and then that's where the what a surprise thing is coming from. Right, identify 2 indirect taxes in the cartoon above. So again, I think you can see that each time we have this topic, public sector, it's common that they ask direct and indirect taxes. So make sure you always have examples in your head. Which ones are direct, which ones are indirect. Name the fiscal instrument represented. Okay, it's simple, that'll be tax. Because we have 2. The other one is government spending. So nothing says government spending in this cartoon, so that'll be tax. What is the surprise? I've mentioned already. The Minister of Finance did not increase any income tax and VAT as expected, but the impact of the increase in fuel levy and excise duties were to such an extent that it made up for not increasing income tax and VAT. So it's like you didn't, but you did. That's why what a surprise, that's where it's coming from. In your opinion, why did the Minister of Finance decide to keep income tax and VAT at the same level? Okay, due to increased income tax in 2014-15, he didn't want to overburden the taxpayer. So what it means is it was increased before, and so now already the taxpayer is paying a lot, so increasing it will be overburdening them. To prevent a negative reaction from the labor force, which is constantly demanding higher wages. Also think about the Laffer curve. The effect is, so if you increase, it might actually result to a decrease in, as the labor force becomes, a negative. Okay, let's say they start quitting their jobs or something like that. VAT as a progressive type of tax remained the same to prevent the poor from becoming poorer, because this one you cannot, not progressive, regressive, because I'm confusing myself, because when I read as progressive, it didn't make sense, because VAT actually is not progressive. Everyone is paying the same 15%. You cannot distinguish the rich and the poor from that. If we all buy milk and VAT is 15%, we are all going to pay 15. So it cannot really be progressive. To prevent loss of income through tax evasion and disincentive to work. Right, to stimulate consumer spending and economic growth. Right, another Laffer curve, and I don't need to really explain it, I did before. Which curve? That is the Laffer curve. What tax rate will government maximize their revenue? That will be 40%. You see, it's different. The other one we had was 45%. Right, what is the correlation between a tax rate of 0 and a tax rate of 100? I've explained it before. In both scenarios, government will make no money at all. Explain the implication of a tax rate of 60%. Government revenue would actually decline. So, and also the other thing is, if government is going to get 100 billion anyway, they might as well charge 20%. Why charge 60% and make the same money? So you'd rather not burden the consumer or the households, rather charge 20%. So 60% makes no sense at all. 20 will be better. It will lead to, people will be encouraged. They are not paying too much. 60 would actually discourage people, and so economy won't grow as much. So the tax evasion or tax avoidance will occur because too much tax is levied on the taxpayer. Taxpayer is burdened, will increase by 20%. Okay. Some of the taxpayers will stop working due to the increased tax load, all that stuff. All right, let's see here. The person here, the face is actually Pravin Gordon, but you'll see the answer, I changed it for a reason. All right, you see he is walking on a rope, and you see he's trying to balance, but you can see he's out of balance. What is he holding here? Order and safety, public services, housing. Here we have social protection, education, health. So he's, all those things, and he's holding an umbrella. I think it's raining or it's hot, whatever the case is, and it says Pravin there. All right, then we are not sure he'll actually create those 6 million jobs. This one says we need to turn this into a better value business destination. Okay, that's probably the foreign sector saying this. That's going to take big tax incentives and reforms to get our economy working. Then here it says, some time ago, the president promised to create 500,000 jobs. Instead, jobs were lost. So yeah, then here it says 9.2 billion in personal income tax relief. All right, let's have a look. What message is, okay, you have to talk about balance here. Mr. Tito Mboweni, but here it's actually Pravin. The reason is the current minister is Tito Mboweni. So if you say Pravin Gordon today, your answer will be wrong. And Tito Mboweni will be wrong in future. It depends. Right, but to run away from all that, you can say the Minister of Finance is trying to find a balance in the distribution of the state's income and the needs in the critical areas of the economy. Give one example of tax incentive. A duty-free incentive, like you can bring in things duty-free from other countries. Tax-free cash grants. Explain the meaning of personal income tax relief. It refers to the measures taken by the government to reduce the tax burden on the taxpayer, e.g., revision of tax rates, a reduction actually. Which part of the population will benefit the most from personal income tax relief? Motivate your answer. Mostly it's the low income earners. The reason will be to improve the standards of living, or even to bridge the gap. That's what I would say. To improve the standards of living of the poor, the minister announced a relief in the scale especially applied to the low income earners. Right, the next one is, I see here we have a pie chart. It says public sector budget, big spending. Okay, so this is G. There was a time when we had T, so this is now G, showing where the money is going. This whole time we're mostly seeing where the money is coming from. Right, which government department received the highest allocation? This is a free mark. That would be education. When does the financial year of the government begin? That is the 1st of April. I've been saying this over and over again. Name any 2 items in the pie chart above that are related to social spending. Almost everything here except for infrastructure. Why do you think the government should spend more on infrastructure development? One of the reasons, I don't know if it's there, but one of the reasons will be, this thing here, infrastructure development, it will lead to the multiplier one way or the other. If government injects money in building whatever, it's going to create employment, and you see that industry is labor intensive, so it doesn't really require a lot of qualifications for some. Of course there will be engineers there, yes, but the most people that will be working on those projects they just need to be strong, or they just need to be able to dig, or in some cases carry things. So it will really create employment to the poor and to those who are not educated, let me say. Right, to promote industrial development, to promote economic growth, to reduce unemployment and improve the standards of living, to reduce poverty. Why does the government allocate 60% of the entire budget to social spending? To improve the quality of life of all citizens, to promote the literacy and numeracy rates, to provide shelter to the unfortunate. Right, this brings us to the end of the topic, public sector. It's been a very, very long one. I wasn't even expecting it to be this long, but yes, I hope you will, you benefited. I hope you will use this to pass your metric. And thank you so much. As usual, please subscribe to the channel and share the link to your friends. And yeah, let's do it. Let's get those distinctions.